are just getting started here with a remix from Taylor Swift's new album with Bleachers. This is Anti-Hero. We're going to start off with some T-Swift, get comfortable. Elena, thanks for joining me up on stage, and then we will get into it. So a couple more seconds of that, and then we'll get into it. I think we should just start welcoming people and getting into it because we have such a packed agenda. Elena put together an incredible agenda for the show today. So let's welcome everybody. I'm going to start by saying hello and thank you for coming. I'm sure we're going to have a lot more people joining because this is probably going to be a pretty long one. But my name is Adam and I'm the head of community here at Rarible. I look after our social and community efforts, including Twitter, Instagram, Discord, and of course, Twitter Spaces. The idea for GM Weekly, this recurring space, is that we pull topics from each of our respective newsletters. Rarible has one called Right Click Recap, and then Elena has one called NF Times, and we bring you the latest news in the Web3 world. Elena, over to you to introduce yourself.
GM. I'm very excited about this episode we have today. I'm Elena. I am a writer. I published the NF Times newsletter, and as well as articles about NFTs, technology ethics, Web3. And we talk about the news usually Mondays, but I was in NFT London, so we moved it to Wednesday. And actually that ended up pretty good because we're going to talk about Elon's Twitter space that happened this morning as well. And yeah, we're going to dive into some news today.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to talk about this week, as people can see from the headline of the Twitter space. But we always like to start with macro sentiments just to sort of ground the space in what's happening more broadly. And I think like the biggest sort of macroeconomic factor here that everyone is aware of is just the prices of crypto. And there are two big reasons I at least think that everyone is getting wrecked right now. The first is, of course, the FTX Binance situation, which continues to get worse. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but I think Binance, according to some tweets, it's hard to say, but Binance looked at FTX's balance sheet and was doing due diligence and was like, nah, we're not going to go through with the acquisition. I've also seen some tweets that are saying that FTX's legal counsel has sort of like up and left. They've like resigned. So I'm not entirely sure like what's happening on that end, but we can get into it. And later on, when we go into that segment, we'll share some tweets. We'll pin them. The other thing, of course, too, which is a big macroeconomic indicator, is the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, which comes out, I believe, tomorrow. And I think if we see hot numbers, we all know that the Fed has been increasing rates 75 basis points consecutively, hoping to slow the growth of the economy and get inflation under control. But if we see hot numbers tomorrow in the CPI, the dump could get even worse. So that's sort of what I see as contributing to these factors. Of course, we know that energy crises, hot inflation all around the world, and then we have the conflict between Russia and Ukraine still happening. So there's more than just these factors, but I think those factors are sort of like the new players that are adding up to just like a really, really dim scenario for crypto, at least in the short term. One interesting thing that I came across was someone's buying strategy for things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and also NFTs. Before I get into it, as a quick reminder, none of this is financial advice. You should always do your own research, but I'm particularly interested in talking to other people and seeing how they navigate the market. And that's part of the reason why Elena and I like hosting these spaces is, just sharing different perspectives so that the listeners can then sort of, make their own decisions. But one thing that I had never really thought of before that I thought was interesting, I was talking to a person, I'm not going to name them because it doesn't look like they're in the space right now, but they have used a credit card through services like MoonPay to buy NFTs. And so what they do is they buy it with their main credit card where they get the points, and then they actually transfer the balance to a new credit card that has a 0% APR for, let's say, the first 12 to 15 months. And so that effectively allows you to pay off that NFT over the course of 12 months with zero interest. And as I think about like maybe some like blue chip purchases. I of course have my doodle, but as I think about like, maybe do I need a clone? Do I need a mutant? Like, are those purchases that I'd be willing to take on and then pay off over the course of a year, knowing that there's actually no interest on that, first 12 to 15 months because of this balance transfer. So really interesting stuff. I don't know if you can do the same thing with crypto. Like, would you be able to buy, let's say, like a Bitcoin with a credit card and then transfer the balance? I don't know, but that's something I'm definitely going to look into because we are in territory that is like fire sale upon fire sale, at least based on the logarithmic regressions. So I'm personally very sad to see the market wrecked, but also happy because it presents a really unique opportunity. And if you're savvy and you feel comfortable with your bags and maybe taking on a little bit more risk or exposure, it could be a good time. But yeah, that's it for macro. Elena, do you want to just add anything to macro before we move into FTX?
Yeah, I mean, the in terms of prices, Bitcoin is at 16,800, which is pretty low. ETH fell hard today to 1,200. It was kind of going down yesterday, but not sure what causes this huge drop from 1,500 to almost like 1,100. If you have any thoughts on that. But that's been kind of the big price story. But so yeah, do you have anything about that?
Yeah, I think the two big things are the CPI numbers. So that's a major economic indicator of like how the economy is doing. And so I think if I were to read between the lines, based on the growth of the economy in previous months, the economy is not slowing down regardless of these rate hikes. I think the market is signaling that they're dumping in anticipation of hot numbers, meaning that rates will continue to rise. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I think with like FTX and Binance, like so many things are getting liquidated all at once. There's a lot of people who are unsure of the market, and maybe they have like long positions, short positions. Maybe they have certain things that are certain financial decisions they've made that are related to the FTX coin or the Binance coin. So I think with so much unsureness in the market, particularly around FTX being insolvent, people are dumping crypto because it just doesn't seem a secure asset right now in terms of the yield that they're looking for. So I think, again, FTX, Binance, huge indicator. I also, if I'm reading between the lines of CPI, people don't believe that we're going to see low numbers, so they're dumping in advance of that. And I expect many people will get back in once the numbers are released and the dump ends, get back in lower, and then save the money on that delta. That's my take. Who knows if it's right, but that's where that from where I'm
No,
sitting,
yeah,
that makes some pretty good sense.
that was pretty good rundown. Thanks. So we can just move on to the news then. We're gonna talk about FTX and Binance. We're gonna talk about Twitter, Elon, royalties, art gobblers, NFT London, and NFTs on Instagram. This is our topics for the day, and let's move on with FTX and.
Yeah, it looks like you're muted. Elena, do you want to take this one just because you have a bunch of like amazing notes? Oh
Oh,
no, can somebody
sorry.
give me? Oh, there you are. You're
Sorry, I
back.
had an AirPods situation. Okay. So the biggest news yesterday was FTX and Binance bailing out bankrupt crypto exchanges. FTX is now being bailed out by Binance themselves. FTX was, the one of the white knights of crypto, and had a reversal of fortune this week and needed money fast. So their rival but also investor Binance came to the rescue. Binance is the largest crypto exchange at 300 billion market cap, while FTX is worth 32 billion. So FTX was seeming, doing really well. So what happens? Balance sheet from Bankman Fried, the CEO of FTX. Their trading firm, Alameda Research, their balance sheet leaked, and it showed that there was a huge assets tied to FTX's native token FTT. And that spurred Binance to announce that it was selling its FTT tokens to avoid risk, a move that sent the price of FTT to even go further down. And that made people panic and sell even more. And the price of the token was falling, which obviously caused the FTX to be short on liquidity. So they started withdrawing crypto, and nearly $6 billion in 72 hours was withdrawn. And Binance, sort of making the smartest chess moves ever, started this situation and then ended up buying it. And the purchase is not fully went through yet. They say that they're going to buy it, but they're doing their due diligence to make sure, looking at their financial footing and their balance sheets. But this is probably one of the most surprising big news that happened, because we haven't seen a merger this big, this important in crypto before. If this was a TradFi, there would probably be antitrust situation, because they are pretty big, two exchange platforms. So what are your thoughts on this, Adam?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of tweets. I just pinned one actually, where a lot of news outlets are reporting that Binance is unlikely to follow through with the acquisition, having seen now their due diligence and having seen their balance sheets. I don't know what particularly their objections are. Likely it's that, FTX was over leveraged with its own token. And that's just like not smart, because when you use your own token as collateral, but then the token price goes down because of exactly what Binance did, like a large sell-off, you're then left holding sort of like this empty bag, but the people who you owe money to still want their money paid. So I can understand how this, would allow you to run an efficient business, but it's sort of like borrowing against yourself and then you can't repay it. So, I think based on a lot of these tweets, it's hard to say, because I don't think I'm on the Binance Twitter right now, and I'm trying to look to see if there are any like official indicators that they're not going to acquire. But yeah, I don't think they are. So I don't know what that sort of leaves FTX to sort of like flounder and go under, I guess. I'm not entirely sure. But that sort of also raises really important points about keeping your coins and having self-custody. I prefer cold storage, of course, because when it's locked up in exchanges, you never know what might happen. There was a period of time, I think, where FTX had stalled some of their withdrawals, or other things that are not great. So always keep your coins, kids.
Exactly. And I saw that we have a request. We're gonna take some questions and thoughts at the end of the space. So feel free to request, and we'll talk and get your thoughts then. Yeah, and it's interesting that this happened to FTX, because Sam has been bailing people out during this crypto winter. He was the second largest donor to Biden campaign and has been very active in U.S. politics as well. And I pinned two like favorite memes I saw, because Sam tweeted before, oh, like, is CZ allowed to go to DC? And then how the tables have turned, and now this is happening. But I guess we're not sure if this deal is going to follow through, but we will be following it closely.
Yeah, I think it's just like unfortunately not a great look for the space. Like, when you have someone like FTX, who I consider just personally to sort of be on the same level as like a Coinbase, for example, when you have like a trusted organization like that, you have a trusted custody holder, where you a marketplace where you can buy and sell, and then you find out that they're insolvent and they don't have enough money to actually, process their debts or to pay out their people. It just becomes really scary. Like, the whole point of crypto is transparency, and privacy and trust. And so it's just wild that like we're seeing that trust and that transparency not actually mirrored in the space when it comes to people's like very real money. I retweeted something this afternoon I'm going to pin it here, which essentially just said like Bitcoin goes on sale and we lost another bad actor. That's a win for the space. And while, I don't think FTX going under is a win for the space, getting all of the bad actors out so that we can make way for things like regulation that requires auditing, that requires transparency financially. I do think ultimately that's a good thing. It just sets us like behind a little bit.
Yeah, it's weird because FTX was, trying to lead crypto regulation. Sam shared that thread about regulation that people didn't like actually, and I never like even thought of FTX as a bad actor, and it's good that we realize, companies that are malleable, similar to Luna, and then those actors like these situation coming into the surface. That's a great thing, but I mean it's kind of sad that FTX is going through this, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they would be if Binance hadn't liquidated all of that at once. Like if they had done, I think more of like a slower liquidation. And I'm not a finance guy. It seems to be because they were using their own token as collateral, and they were like making loans, and they were like moving money around. And so when Binance liquidated all of it at once and that bill came, they just didn't have enough to pay the bill. So I don't think they're a bad actor per se, like with negative or bad intentions to deceive people or hurt the space. I just think they were too greedy, is not even the right word. They were just too sort of like flimsy with their own standards, financial standards about like how much they have to keep on hand. Like banks have to keep a certain amount of money on hand. Doesn't mean you can't walk into a bank and even if you have $1 million in your checking account, it doesn't mean you can withdraw $1 million that day, but it does mean that there are certain thresholds that banks have to abide by, and it's because they're regulated. So I think this is going to actually propel the space forward by saying, hey, even the trusted ones still sometimes can't make all of this happen the way we think the space is supposed to. We need regulation. And so it's unfortunate, but I do think it's a good thing. One of the funny things that's been circulating is Martin Shkreli telling Do Kwon that jail's not that bad. And everyone's been tagging Sam Bankman-Fried in it. And I just think that's amazing. So anyway, back to you. Those are just sort of like my thoughts and ramblings.
Yeah, I pinned a funny tweet as well, about art colors, which is another topic that we're gonna come. But let's move on to Twitter, shall we?
Absolutely. I think that's been top of everyone's mind. I'm super curious because I've been in meetings all day and then I recorded a podcast this morning. So I actually wasn't able to sit in on the space, but I've seen so many crazy screenshots of like who was in the space, how many brands were in the space, the number of people alone. I think there were like 70, upwards of 70,000 in the space. Like if you were able to tune in, I'd love to hear more about sort of what they talked about and what you learned.
Yeah, let me actually. I took a screen grab. I'll post it on Twitter and pin it because there were like so many brands and so many people. I tweeted, Twitter's gonna have its biggest space today, and I'm pretty sure it did actually. So a lot happened on Twitter. We're not gonna go through everything that happened because we've been following it, and Elon says something, he changes it. There's so much going on, but the main situation that a couple of things that I want to talk about is, of course, one, the Twitter Blue subscription situation, which was $20, then settled on $8, and it seems like it's going to be there for sure. And there were even conversations about putting the entire Twitter behind a paywall as well, but I'm not too sure if that's gonna move forward. And what I understand from Elon's tweets, which are on the more annoying side, if in terms of what people think and how he was talking in the spaces and what he actually does, he just is trying everything. I think that's the point. He wants to try things, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work, what we need to do. And he said that on the spaces too, and tweeted that we're gonna bring a lot of stupid things. We're gonna do stupid stuff, and then we're gonna try to just switch it, pivot really quickly if we do those things. And I'm a fan of trying things out, not in a way that would bring harm to people. We don't have to rush through things, which has been a critique that Twitter employees had. But he's just been implementing different things. So one big thing happened is Musk said Twitter users who engage in impersonation without clearly specifying parody will be permanently suspended. A couple of people, including Kathy Griffin, got suspended permanently, and he got a lot of fire for seemingly blocking people who were mocking him, because a lot of people changed their name to Elon Musk and profile pictures and were tweeting as if it was him. And obviously that was a joke. And even an account that wrote parody in the banner got banned as well. So that has been one topic that was big. And then other is there are kind of more users than ever right now that are using Twitter. In the same time, there are a lot of advertisers who are scaling back. A lot of companies said we're not going to advertise on Twitter anymore. So Musk is trying to find this balance between, yes, free speech, but no to impersonation, thus verification, but also, he needs to make money. And actually, the calculations about Twitter Blue says that's not really going to bring any revenue, any substantial revenue. So he needs the advertisers back as well. So he's been trying to kind of talk for both of them. Any thoughts so far? I
Yeah,
have more to rant, but
I
so far.
know. Yeah, I think that one of the few things that I do like about Elon Musk's leadership style, if we can call it that, is sort of like build fast and see what happens. I think a lot of times in tech, particularly around sort of sensitive topics like free speech and terms of service and other things, there's like a lot of sensitivity there that causes paralysis in terms of like building new features, shipping new features. I do think that there is a responsibility around an election, for example, right now, the midterms, for people who are, impacting platforms that have reach. I do think there's a responsibility there for content moderation, making sure fake news does not sort of come out and sway voters. I do think there is that responsibility, but I also like the build things, iterate, see how they work, scrap them if they don't. I saw a tweet from Elon. It said something to the effect of, we're going to do a lot of things right. We're going to do a lot of things wrong. We're going to build and see what happens. And I do think that is a departure from the Twitter that I worked at when I was there, where it was sort of like everything needs to like be perfect. Everything needs to have the go to market that's perfect. Everything needs to like neatly fit into these boxes. So in that respect, I do really like it. I think that a major bit of trust has been lost in terms of like advertising revenue. So I don't know how he plans to get that back. Maybe these spaces will become more concrete. Maybe they will become more regular, like ours. Maybe we can get him to come on our GM Weekly space. Wouldn't that be wild? But yeah, I think it's going to be tough to get that trust back from the advertisers. But you could also make the argument, if you flip that coin, that says, more people are on Twitter than ever before. The rules are sort of relaxed. It's never been a better time to advertise on Twitter. So because I'm a Libra, I can usually see both sides of things. But from a content safety and brand safety perspective, I don't think that argument is strong enough yet. It could be, but it's not strong enough yet.
Yeah, well, I'm a Scorpio and I'll scrutinize everything. Yeah, I agree. And another topic that within Twitter I want to talk about is layoffs. So they Elon laid off half of the company, and I think less than 24 hours, some are asked to come back. There was they wrote, and I quote, "Sorry to everybody on the weekend, but I wanted to pass along that we had the opportunity to ask folks that were left off if they will come back. I need to put together names and rationales." So there was a lot of conversation about this rationale. So Elon asked people to actually print and bring all the code that they wrote and show it to Elon, and people were going crazy. Is what I heard from. There was a podcast that featured two Twitter employees. So people were printing, code that they helped, that they were, every little bit of something that they wrote, whether that be good or bad, and then the people were actually caring more about volume than quality in a sense. But that's not actually how it works in coding. You might usually, if you can write something in a more eloquent and shorter way, that's seen better. And I think Elon was asking for codes like cool codes. People who actually, I guess, write cool codes, whatever that means. And people were, I guess, confused because there were no guidelines. People didn't know what they were supposed to be working on or who their managers were. So they just started to do whatever that they needed to stay in the company if they wanted to stay. And people were also told to do something that you love and hope Elon loves it, or focus on something that he is prioritizing, whether that be Twitter Blue or something else. And so I'm curious, how things are in Twitter, because it's very interesting that the, a lot of, like, half of the company got laid off in a time of a lot of tech layoffs. Professor Scott Galloway actually predicted this months ago and called it the Patagonia vest layoffs. Facebook, Meta laid off 11,000 people today. So it's going to be difficult for those people, especially, who weren't expecting this.
Absolutely. We still need to get Scott and Kara to come on.
I'd die.
Maybe now that I have paid my $7.99 for Twitter Blue to become verified, I can tweet at her and she'll see it.
She responded to me a couple of times.
I remember. Yeah. Yeah, you should just tweet at her or DM her. Tell her next time.
I'll email both. I have both. I found both their emails. I'm gonna do that.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I just pinned a tweet up top about how like a ton of engineers were laid off and then are being asked to come back. A lot of people are saying no. And, you know, it's hard. You don't know anyone's financial situation, but I would say with engineers in particular, they're usually compensated pretty well. And so I would imagine that if they're financially responsible, they have some cushion to land on. So, I've been likening it to an experience with like a crazy ex. Like if your ex breaks up with you in the heat of the moment, and then you're like, okay, that's sad, but okay. And then they come to you 12 hours later, like crying and screaming and like trying to get you back. You're like, wait a minute, no, I'm not going back. I'm not walking back into a situation where you got rid of me so easily, you want me back so easily, and now what? Are you going to keep me and maybe get rid of me again? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. And these people are smart. They work at Twitter. They're good engineers. So even though I think that there's a little bit of like a tech bump right now with hiring, engineers will always be necessary. So I think particularly with engineers, like a lot of them will be okay. The thread though that I posted was just up top that I pinned was about how their Twitter has a very complex architecture. Whether that was purposeful or not purposeful, I'm not sure. I'm not an engineer. But what they're experiencing right now is the teams who are managing certain core products or certain core foundations of that architecture either don't exist or the institutional knowledge has shifted to other teams or there's like no documentation around it. So it's sort of like a castle that's like built on a very flimsy foundation. And like, who knows how long the castle can survive when weather or hardships come to like sort of test the foundation. So it'll be curious to see, even with the money being saved from the layoffs, even with the small amount of revenue that might be secured through Twitter Blue, if the core product of Twitter breaks and they don't know how to fix it because it was such a huge operation, it could spell doom for Twitter. Twitter could be down for months as they try to investigate the problem, as they try to fix the problem. These are libraries of code that are super complex. And so while I hope that doesn't happen, it definitely could. So I'm a little worried for Elon in that respect.
Oh, that, I mean, I hope not, and I would imagine something like that not happening. I have trust in Elon in terms of a businessman and a tech guy, and I think he can deliver great products. Um, what was upsetting for me this week was like him tweeting, urging people to vote Republican and using his platform on the platform that he owns, guiding that. And that's been sort of my bad Elon take, but I don't know. I'm just, if you're like the richest guy on earth, I think he's doing okay. Like I imagine, his life is like so different than anybody else. But also another like bad thing about this situation is the people he surrounded himself with, because he's you know has all his Elon fanboys next to him. Actually, Kara talks about it a bunch because obviously she knows all these people, and says, there are the smart tech people, and then there are the second tier sort of fanboy, like got a bit lucky and now kind of following through their favorites, tech bro, that group. And he has a lot of them around him, and I think he needs to make sure that he has diverse opinions and diverse sort of perspectives to be able to make this into a better product, and not necessarily a better product for the their own experience, because I bet they have the best Twitter experience as a rich, verified, millions of followers white guy. But what is the experience for a marginalized person on Twitter who is getting bullied, and making sure that the Twitter is turning into a better product, especially for them? And also, wine might do a comeback.
Yeah, I mean, you're raising a lot of great points. I think one thing Twitter did, in my opinion, well, was balance the freedom of speech, which is not unencumbered. There are many situations in which you cannot say what you want. Um, part, an example, like you can't yell fire in a crowded building. You just can't do that. With terms of service, which create a healthy and respectful place to converse. Obviously, people are not going to agree. Obviously, people don't need to agree, but you can't threaten someone, you can't misgender someone, you can't deny sort of like the basic human dignity, even if you disagree with someone. That will get you, or used to get you, a strike or banned. Now it's really hard to say, just because I don't know if Twitter under Elon really values those things as much. But we will have to see. There was a tweet that went out an hour ago, that I just pinned, going back to FTX, that says Sam Bankman-Fried's Alameda research website has been taken down, and then they post a screenshot of the website. So it seems like things are like disappearing pretty fast.
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting. I also heard that Twitter had always a bad management structure. That's why it was there were too many employees, and there was a difficulty in like management. And if I was Elon, I would like sit down, figure out, like, make a org chart and organize the shit out of Twitter, because that's how I work, and I feel like that would be a very satisfactory thing to do. But I feel like this is going to be more try and fail kind of next couple months on Twitter, and we're gonna see a lot of changes.
Yeah. It's pretty wild, honestly. It is so many things are happening. It's sort of even hard to figure out like what's impacting what, because all of it is happening at once at such speed. But we'll just have to keep an eye on things. And maybe, I know that we've made sort of like the Elon acquisition a standing part of our segments. Maybe we should do another segment on like what features have been rolled out. Because I have the
And
I
what we want
yeah.
as well.
Well, he keeps tweeting like, "Hey, I'm your new customer service representative. Like, what do you want to see from Twitter?"
He
So
said that
he's
on the Twitter
taking,
Spaces too. He said,
yeah.
like, if you want something, like, reply under one of my tweets. I'll do my best to respond.
Which I also, earlier I said that like I really liked his quote unquote leadership style in terms of building fast. I also appreciate how much he's actually been active and telling people like, "Oh, that's a good idea," or "Oh, that's not a good idea. We're not doing this. Here's why." collecting that feedback is, I think, actually pretty impressive. If you're a billionaire, you're actually on the product that you just bought and you're actually using it. You're not just like buying it and disappearing. That I think is pretty impressive to me. If I were a billionaire, I would be buying like cool looking mutant apes and more doodles. I would not be on Twitter going back and forth with people. Or maybe I'd buy
Yeah,
one of the zombie MFers, but I really respect that he's doing that.
yeah. It's one thing that's like cannot be, taken aback is like Jack Dorsey was a part-time CEO, and Twitter finally has a owner who cares about the platform and is like a super user. And also I wanted to remind people that you can request, and we're gonna invite people to tell their questions or comments at the end of like towards the end of the space. And Adam, do you want to take us into royalties?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there has been so much talk recently about like the big main events that we've already covered today, such as price action, such as FTX, Binance, such as like the acquisition of Twitter by Elon Musk, tech layoffs. But another conversation that's sort of brewing underneath all of it, and I would say that is the conversation about royalties. I just pinned a thread to the top of the space where, and I wrote this thread for full transparency, where we talk about our Rarible, where we talk about our stance on royalties, because I think, with the growing trend of 0% royalties platforms or optional royalties platforms, I think it's becoming increasingly difficult to put a stake in the ground uh, with where you stand, either personally or if you're a marketplace. It's just getting very messy. And so I think like the first place to begin is just with like sort of like a brief history um, of the promise of Web3, and partially why creators and artists and NFT collections even have royalties to begin with. Was because it would be an opportunity. It would be an opportunity that had really never been done before for like the everyday artist to sell art and get royalties on it in Web3. Like that doesn't really happen IRL all that much. I'm sure it does. I'm sure there have been cases, but when it comes to sort of like the promise of what Web3 could offer, I think that drew a lot of artists to the space. And we saw that with so many artists activating in the space. There were platforms where you had to set your royalties on the platform. I think there are also royalties now built into smart contracts. I think you can sort of go around them with certain technologies, but essentially, there was this sort of like promise for a new way of transacting, a new way for artists and for collections. And I think actually it's pretty cool because when I think about a new collection, let's say I start a collection tomorrow and I mint out, and let's say I have 10 ETH now from that mint to build value for the collection. If I'm not getting royalties and that 10 ETH runs out, that project is now officially a rug, and I would have to either take VC funding or I would have to look elsewhere for money. And so it becomes, this way in which we also are building communities through royalties, because you're able to build value for the projects that you ultimately are running. Now, if you are, let's say, like a Bored Ape, or let's say you're a Doodles, or you're any one of these like blue chip collections, do you need the royalties? I don't know. That one's a hard one for me to answer. Both of those that I just mentioned have raised money. So do they need the royalties? Probably not. But is it still nice to have? Absolutely. And, some of those royalties, at least for Doodles, I know goes into the Doodle Bank, which is anyone who owns a Doodle can put a proposal forward and get funding. So there's a lot of compelling reasons why I think royalties are important. However, once this trend started to happen, where marketplaces started building technologies where royalties were eliminated or where they could be circumvented, a lot of people flocked to those marketplaces. So things like X2Y2, I think LooksRare has announced optional royalties or 0% royalties. So now a lot, not a lot, because OpenSea still has like quite a bit of the market share here, but a lot of that liquidity is moving towards these other places, meaning the places that do enforce royalties are losing money. And as we know, NFT marketplaces are businesses, just like any other business is. And so, when people are flocking to competitors, you're like, oh, shoot, what do we need to do to stay competitive? Well, one of those things that could be done is to eliminate royalties altogether, and let people sort of come back and transact with you while still paying the platform fee. You're paying no royalties. So it's a win for the collector because they pay the least amount. It's a win for the marketplace because they're processing the most amount of transactions because, again, the collector is getting the lowest price. But when it comes to the actual creators, the artists, and the collections, they're the ones who are getting cut out. And so I think this undercutting of royalties is really just it's like a race to the bottom. I don't think it empowers the space. I don't think it empowers communities. And I don't think it empowers people to keep building here. And so I think it's actually going to be sort of like a self-inflicted wound that can be bled out from, and the space will really, really start to hit challenges. If people don't want to build in the space, there's not new collections. The collections that do exist aren't getting consistent revenue. It could lead to a real problem. So Rarible took the stance as of yesterday, to just share that we are in support of royalties and we're building tools that are going to allow royalties to still be paid on our site. And in certain situations, we'll enforce royalties even if you're buying something that's listed on another marketplace through Rarible. So, a complex topic with a complex history, but we know where we stand, which is we support communities, we support creators, and we're hoping that people come to Rarible and continue, we're like partnering with us, buying from us, creating with us, because of that stance. So lots going on, but Elena, I want to throw it back over to you either for responses or questions, or even your perspective on royalties.
Yeah, I that's why I like Rarible, Rarible's with the creators. I honestly was like, when I first saw this topic, I was like, what do you mean, like, no royalties? NFTs, one of the main reasons NFTs were popular in the first place was royalties, because, the a traditional artist 100 years ago would sell painting. Let's say Jackson Pollock sells a painting for $1,000 and then gets resold for $1 million, and he gets nothing out of that. And royalties was going to be the key technology to enable digital artists, or if you tie it to a physical good, that artist could see that benefits in the long term, and also have a passive income using this. So I am definitely for profits, especially for art NFTs. Perhaps I could understand the situation with collections. Maybe it could be lower, or I don't know. But for collections as well, they need consistent money flow as well, unless they take VC funding. Maybe those could be exclusive to one another. Like, if you get VC funding, then you don't necessarily need royalties, aka moonbirds or Bored Apes. But I really hope that this zero royalties doesn't become a generic thing. OpenSea shared a thread where they said that they might cancel royalties for existing projects, and then if you wanted to add royalties, you have to add it in your smart contract. But then the smart contract that they created doesn't allow people to sell that collection, use other marketplaces, which is the opposite of what decentralization and Web3 is supposed to be. So bad points on OpenSea.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. I sort of started my segment on royalties with sort of like the promise of Web3 and what it could achieve for the space collectively. And royalties was one of those things which would allow artists, creators, collections, etc., to get that small bit of every sale that would help them keep building and help the space keep creating value. So I am like you. I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like, people aren't paying royalties? Like, I never even thought it was really all that optional. In all fairness, I can see why people also want to get the lowest price. Like, if you're buying a doodle and you can go somewhere and save 0.3, 0.5, 1 ETH, depending on, the fee structure of the marketplace and the royalties and all that other stuff, of course you're going to want to get that doodle for the lowest amount of price. And does doodle need that, you know, zero point 0.3 ETH? No, doodles doesn't. But to me, in terms of like an ethical person, when the collection sets up their royalties, or if they have it in their smart contract, if you want to engage with that collection or that NFT, you should be willing to follow all of the smart contract. That's the whole point of a contract. And so just because we've created technologies now that either nullify or go around that, I don't think that that is ethical. Like yeah, I just don't. And so I'm, you know, in full support. Of course, Rarible is in full support. There's a slight caveat here. I do think that individuals should always have the opportunity to transfer NFTs from one wallet to another. That's just the basis of privacy and security and owning your own assets. So I don't think there's ever going to be a scenario where we can halt like over the counter trades. Like if I send you, you know, the doodle and then you send me like, you know, 7 ETH or whatever it is, of course, like royalties are not going to be paid on that transaction just because it's over the counter and it's not going through like a marketplace. But I think the necessity to have the transferability is much more important there. Also, I don't know what percentage of OTC trades account for like a majority of the overall trades, but I would guess it's probably pretty slim. So that's not really counted in this discussion, at least for me. But yeah, it's definitely a complex topic. There's a lot of people who believe certain things, and I think for the marketplaces, they just want to be processing transactions, and the best way to do that is offer the lowest prices, which means bypass royalties. So I get it. They're a business. They want to be as efficient as possible. They want to get as much liquidity as possible. It all makes sense, but I think if we need to stop caring about just what our bag looks like and think about building the entire space up, because if each person just cares about themselves, there's not really going to be a healthy space. So that's my rant on my soapbox.
Yeah, I agree. Before moving on to the next topic, I want to ask you, wait, do you have Twitter Blue?
Yeah, I do. I
You're
just bought
verified
it.
right now.
Yeah, I just bought it.
Okay. Okay, I was gonna say like you're very I saw that. I was like, is this a lag? Is like what's happening?
Imagine. No, yeah, I just got it.
Are
I
you
had Twitter
famous?
Blue. I had Twitter Blue, like the old Twitter Blue from like being an employee. Just in transparency, like when you work at Twitter, you link up your Twitter to their backend, and then it like automatically gave you like the I guess the lower version of Twitter Blue, because now there's like the 399 version, I think, and then the 799 version. Um, so the lower version does not give you the blue check, but this updated version does. So I wanted to play around with it. Like I can afford $8 a month, thankfully. So I'm gonna keep it. I like it. But also just really quick, Bitcoin's about to go into 15,000, which is absolutely nuts. It's $16,117. I would give it, I don't know, maybe 2 hours, maybe even less. We're looking at a $15,000 Bitcoin, which is a great time to accumulate actually when it's low, when there's blood in the streets. Again, not financial advice, but that's what I'll most likely be doing. But dang, imagine
Yeah,
buying at
let's
60K. Imagine buying at 60K.
let's
Down
let's
bad.
hope the ETH doesn't go below thousands, you know.
I'm
That's
gonna
that's the
stack some
hope.
ETH too.
I know I got some yesterday. I should have waited a bit more.
Dang.
Yeah. It's all right.
Yeah. Oh
Do you want to
man.
talk about some art gobblers? And I have some bad things to say about it.
Yeah. Why don't you start with like the bad things? Or I don't know. I guess I'll start with like I think what's
Basic
on
info.
everybody's mind. Well, yeah, so like Art
Go
Gobblers
for it.
was, you know, this project that it was essentially like another influencer pump and dump. And what was different about this one, which I found very interesting, I'll be curious if the audience has anything to say or add. What I thought about this one, which was interesting, was like the influencers themselves were like called out, but then defending them. And there was like a massive, like this sometimes does happen where you see influencers get called out and, you know, it just sort of blows over. In this one, and I can think of a couple ones in particular. I don't want to like say the names because it's done now. but it was almost like they were calling like character witnesses to be like, no, I believe in this project. I like this project. I've been here since the beginning. I've been, working hard to like, be an advisor on this project. That's why I got whitelist or allow list. And so I just found it very odd that now it's like this whole character witness thing. And I just, it did exactly what we've seen before. It pumped, I think, up to like 15 ETH, maybe even higher. And then it dumped. And let me look at the price right now. I think it's probably around like four.
I have it on. It is 3.7
Dang.
floor price.
And then the GOB, or I think it was the GOB token, because there's a token as well. And I think it
Goo,
pumped.
goo.
Oh, Goo. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Goo. I think it went pretty high, and then I think it dumped as well.
Yeah. Okay. So what I think about this is I am over some celebrity dumping, pump and dumps. I'm over allow lists that are happening inside alpha groups that are all men who are already, have generational wealth from a couple different projects just from being in those conversations. I am just like very over this situation, and it's it really like rubbed me in the wrong way when I saw this happening, in this market that we have right now, where people are literally having difficulty having like ends meet. It's just like we have inflation and a lot of like global issues that are impacting people, and that also is true in crypto. A lot of people lost in Luna, in just declining prices, and this project comes. It's not a good art, first of all. Like art kind of sucks. And then Farok, no, Andrew, one of them either had an account that said like I'm a 13-year-old, and then was pumping this project for last couple of months, I believe, and then this artwork comes out totally not safe for work, and the whole goose situation. They might say that it's like from the nose, but that doesn't feel like it to me at all. If you watch Rick and Morty, that's not a PG 13 kind of show at all. And the OpenSea description says art gobblers skirt goo and gobble art. I don't know. This like there's like no crazy value I see in this. And people have been working on creating projects for such a long time. They have like great artworks, great team, they put their heart and soul into it. And it's just annoying to see that bunch of influencers get allow lists still. Like if they give allow lists to these people to give away in their communities, like okay, okay, like they have reach, they should use that. But why the fuck are you using it for yourself? Like it's so annoying for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think influencers have always been sort of a source of contention in our space. I would say like in the quote unquote real world, like if an influencer gets like gifted a bag, let's say, like let's just say, Kim Kardashian is seen wearing a Balenciaga bag. People can go out and buy that bag or not. Doesn't really matter. They buy the bag, they enjoy the bag, whatever. This space, I think there's a bigger responsibility here because it's people's money and the value of the thing that they're buying can change drastically within minutes to hours. So if got on this allow list, you minted or you for some reason got one early, and you got it at, let's say, 1 ETH, 2 ETH, 3 ETH, whatever it was, and it pumped to 15 ETH, and that was like life-changing money for you. I'm like so happy for some of those people. But if it was influencers shilling just so that they could get it up to 15 ETH and then dump and then just sort of like be in the carnage, having like won yet again, that to me is very, very, very frustrating. So I think, everyone in the space says do your own research. I think people really need to take that more seriously than the word of an influencer. Because in this case, maybe no one knew it was going to pump that high. Maybe no one knew. Let's assume it still is everyone's responsibility if they're spending their ETH on it to do the research. And my research, like I would have never bought this project, regardless of if, Andrew or Farouk or any of the other people had bought into it or minted. That is automatically almost like a red flag for me. I'm like, wait a minute. check this out. This is not this is a great opportunity to 2x, go buy it. It's like, nope, check this out. Be even more be even more diligent with your due diligence because so many people are pumping it. That's my take, but people will continue to, chase the clout and chase the opportunity to 2x, 3x in the course of 5 hours.
Yeah, I mean, if it's if a lot of people like if Farog, Andrew, all these people were pushing it, and then you look the creators like Rick and Morty, wow, like it's so easy to kind of imagine people who are trying to maybe make up for losses or whatnot to jump into this, where all these influencers after doing pumping it, they just drop it. So you can also imagine people who probably lost a lot of money from this as well, buying on secondary. So it's pretty annoying to me. Like we should like evolve above this already. This is not NFTs are supposed to be.
Yeah, I also find it fascinating. Like art gobblers are super affordable. Okay, I'm not gonna say super affordable because I don't know, everyone's, financial, but 3.7 ETH is a lot less than 15. So if you really believe it and you really like the art, go buy it. I'm not saying that to you, Elena. I just mean for all like the people out there and the people who wanted to be a part of it. If you want to be a part of it, great, go buy it. You might not have the upside, but that's what eventually you're going to have to reckon with is, do you like the project because of the project, or do you like it because you think it'll make you money? And if you think it's just going to make you money and you lose money, I really don't have anything to tell you. Whereas if you like the project, you like the team, you like the community, and you lose money, there's still going to be some satisfaction there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's pretty wild though. Yeah, I think I like don't buy the influencer stuff, even if it does go up, even if I do have an opportunity, even if I do have some ETH laying around. I almost like have this subconscious rule where I'm like, don't buy it because I just don't know enough about it. You got to do your own research. So I think part of this is influencer culture. The other part of it ultimately is also that individual responsibility, for people to not ape in if they can't afford to lose it all. But I hear what you're saying too about these backdoor deals, these non-transparent practices, these like alpha groups, these allow lists that
It
continue to
all
reward the
happens
same
there.
people. Yeah, it
It
continues to
really
reward
all
the same
happens there.
people.
Yeah.
I'd be
I
curious. I don't know if like Andrew or Farouk or any of those wallets are like public, but I'd be curious if they're still holding on to them or if they dumped them like at the peak.
I heard a lot of them like dumped it. Maybe like after the scrutiny, they're you know they for them like probably 15 ETH is less important than their reputation, I'd imagine. But yeah, not a good look at all.
Yeah,
Do you
can
want to
I?
talk?
Well,
Yeah.
before we move on, I just pinned a tweet. It says, Binance spokesperson says FTX has issues beyond our control or ability to help. So that acquisition is
Dang!
probably not going through.
That is
let's watch let's watch
not cool.
crypto go into the let's watch Bitcoin go into the 15,000s. It's currently
Oh, damn it.
16,124, but I think it's gonna drop.
Damn it. Oh, Sam, you broke our hearts. But for the audience again, reminding you, we're gonna talk about we have two more topics that we're gonna talk about in the next 15 minutes, and we're gonna take your questions and thoughts in the last 15 minutes. And if you don't have anything else to add, we can talk about some NFTs on Instagram.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so this has been in the conversation for a minute, so we knew that this was coming. And we had Reddit being extremely successful in this last couple of months, and then we had Twitter, talking about NFT tiles where you can, they're gonna have a better display of NFTs, and now Instagram, they are having an end-to-end toolkit from creation and showcasing to selling NFTs. They are starting with Polygon, but I believe they added support for Solana, if I'm not wrong. I'll double check. And people will be easily to support their favorite creators by buying their NFTs or digital collectibles, if you may, directly within Instagram. So they're testing these new features right now with small group of creators, but they're gonna expand really soon.
Yeah, I think this is dope. I'm gonna pin another tweet. We've had like so many tweets. I actually love this because tweets are everything to me. It's where I spend all my day. It's my favorite thing ever, honestly. Um, so the first collection that actually like minted, sold out on Instagram in like 10 seconds. It was by this person or artist named Drift or Drifter Shoots. I don't know much about them, but they sold
He's pretty
out.
great.
Yeah, and I was on a podcast this morning talking about sort of like the strategy of how we onboard the next like billion people to crypto. And I'm thinking that it's through these hybrid scenarios. So, taking a step back, MetaMask obviously is one of the first wallets that many people use. Oh, I think we lost Elena, everybody. That's okay, I'll keep going. MetaMask is one of the first wallets that people use, at least for ETH, but the UX is not really. Here we go, Elena's back. Do, 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 do. Elena, you back?
Yeah, sorry. I
Did,
clicked on the wrong thing for. I'm back.
Oh, no worries. No worries. I was just saying, I think that a hybrid approach is actually going to get us the adoption that we want. So, again, I was giving the example of MetaMask. MetaMask is not intuitive. The UX is not easy. It's not pretty. And when you have to start copying and pasting wallet addresses, you have multiple wallets, you might forget which wallet has permissions to which things. It becomes pretty complicated. Like, I don't think I would be able to explain it to my parents easily, or, like a teenager easily. I wouldn't be able to do that. It takes a certain skill set in order to be able to navigate Web3 in its current form. So I don't think companies like MetaMask or even Coinbase Wallet are going to get us the adoption that we want, even if we think they are. I just don't think that's possible. So the purely crypto native companies, if we want to call them that, I don't think they're going to be the ones that help us onboard all of these people into Web3. I actually think it's going to be the proper Web2 companies that sort of evolve into like Web 2.5. That's sort of where I see Instagram going. Is if Instagram can be Web 2.5 and offer, education on wallets, offer ETH, offer Polygon, offer Solana. NFTs are mostly very visual, so it makes a lot of sense right now. That's how I think we get to the numbers that we want to get to in terms of wallet adoption, wallet usage, and like ETH or Solana or Polygon adoption. I don't think it's through just the Web3 companies. So I'm actually in favor here. On the flip side of that coin, you also then have a lot of people, talking about privacy, talking about regulation, talking about user data, and those are all very valid concerns here. What I would say is that a lot of like, if it's on-chain activity, it's public anyway. The one differentiator there is like you might not be doxxed. Whereas like if Instagram is hosting the data around your profile and you have your wallet linked, if that information were to be released or somehow hacked into, that could be definitely a security issue or a privacy issue. But since all of this on-chain activity is public anyway, as long as they approach safety and security in the right way, I think it'll actually be really good for the space. So that's sort of my thoughts here. Elena, what do you think?
Yeah, so I pinned first a tweet about uh, where we wrote about Web2 companies versus Web3 companies entering metaverse, but you can kind of think of the same at this point about NFTs as well. Months and months ago, we didn't really think Instagram would be implementing NFTs this early at all. So let's hope that they do it in a right way, but it's going to be great for onboarding the next billion people. Also curious what podcast you talked about. You're going to send me that. And but in the meantime, you don't want Web2 to just choose and pick the different features and aspects of crypto and Web3 that they like and then leave the rest. So, like utilizing actually like for them right now, they have a lot of Web2 data. And if they also, you're going to connect your wallet or whatnot, having Web3 data, which a lot of people could also argue tells a lot more about you than what you post. What you own is more of a indicator than what you post. they're gonna have even more data to utilize. So I'm a little worried, but also curious where this is gonna go. But I don't know. It's pretty interesting. But it's also weird that this doesn't really have any effect on like the crypto community that much or the prices. If you asked me a year ago, I would say, oh yeah, when probably Instagram does NFTs, that's gonna have an impact on price. But we see that it actually doesn't.
Yeah, I don't think it'll have too much of an impact in the short term. I think, there's like something like, let me see if I can Google this really quickly. The number of ETH wallets total is 210 million. Now, the number of users of Instagram is on track to reach 2.5 billion by next year. So, if if let's say every person on Instagram, which is not going to be the case, not all accounts are legit, not all accounts are going to want this, but even if 1 million and billion, is that 1% or 10%? It's probably 10%. I'm not good at math, but even if a slight amount of those people adopt crypto wallets through the use of Instagram, the current size of the NFT community, or the ETH community at least, could double. Like, that is what's going to bring the price changes. It's not going to be, one collection selling out on Polygon, but it's sort of like, if by next year or the following year, the usage rates that we've seen for crypto wallets get mirrored in apps like Instagram, I think it could actually have a profound change. That then also too is like sort of this picture that we've all been seeing in a far off landscape of, we get the regulation, which then allows institutions.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Are we rugged? Can you hear me? Okay. Adam, I can't hear you, but I think I'm being heard. I'll keep moving. Yeah, sorry. I really think this.
Sorry,
Okay,
did I get rugged?
you're back. Okay, you're in. Cool. Yes. Keep going.
Sorry, I got a call on my phone, and I think it probably like disconnected me or something. What I was saying, I don't know at what point I dropped off, but what I was saying is, there's this sort of far off picture that I can sort of see where these Instagram opportunities really increase like the adoption of at least wallets, let alone like purchases of ETH, Polygon, Solana, etc. And also the regulation front will allow things like institutional investment, sovereign wealth, etc., to pour into the space. And at that convergence point, that's when I see crypto really take off. Because right now we're all still early. We're super early. Once we see the user adoption go up, and once we see that regulation happen, I think we are on like a very, very fast track then to like building the 13th sector, which I'm personally very excited about. So anyway, that's my thought there. But we can definitely move on.
Okay. No, that was pretty good. We're just gonna talk a little bit about NFT London. I'm gonna tell what happened, and if you have a question, feel free to request now, question or comment about what we talked about, which was we talked about prices, about FTX and Binance, about Twitter, Elon, royalty situation, art gobblers, NFTs on Instagram. Feel free to request. And I'll talk a little bit about NFT London. I was there last week. It was actually pretty nice. The conference was for 2 days, and there were a lot of speakers and attendees. And I saw some stuff online about how empty it was. I guess that was like at 9 a.m. I wasn't there at 9 a.m. I was there at like 10:30, and it was pretty good. I met a lot of new people. It was great for networking. Perhaps not so much about learning anything new, but that's fine. We do these conferences, and some people can come to learn more about the space, but I feel like these conferences are right now mainly for people within the community. And I gave a talk about brand and creator strategies, which is really fun. There were some conversations about, there was like brand track, social good track. There was a conversation about Soulbone tokens, a lot of futuristic stuff, not a lot of price talk at all. I went to MFers dinner, which people were upset that you're not an MFR anymore, but but it was a great dinner. Really, kind of reminded me and showed me again that MFers are literally the best community. It was like very chill, very cool. I went to World of Women event. It was at Arcade Apes, which is owned by two guys that I met. They're pretty cool. They have like opened this bar. Not It's not a pop up. It's gonna be there, and there was a World of Women and Psychedelic Anonymous event at the same time, which is pretty cool. And then the next day they had a V Friends meetup on my birthday actually. So that was also fun. We played some Uno. The one of the differences between, I guess, it being in London was there were a lot of people from Europe, which in the conferences in US you usually don't see as much. So it was great to get to know, crypto people from Europe, a lot of people from Berlin, from Italy, from actually from like Asia a lot as well. And it was interesting to see like finding out new projects that people are working on. And actually a good aspect as well was it wasn't like crazy men dominated. There were a lot of amazing women that I could connect with. So that was fun.
I know. Unfortunately I had to leave my MFer behind. He was sacrificed in order to acquire this doodle. So RIP. Hopefully you poured one out for me and the community, because I know a lot of floors are hurting right now, but I think MFers are somewhere around point 0.9, and I got mine around like I think 4 ETH. So I couldn't bear more bloodshed.
Wait, you got your MFR for 4 ETH?
I think it was around there.
Oh
Maybe
my
maybe
God.
maybe I have to go back and look. It was I remember it being a lot, and ETH was like 3 grand at the time. Like I
Oh
remember
my
spending
God.
like a ton of money on that, and I was so
You know,
proud of it. And then I held on to it while it was dumping. Even after Farouk dumped his, I was like, no, like the community can survive. And then I was like, no, I gotta go.
well, floor's like one. You know what I got it for?
What?
0.15.
Okay, I'm done. I'm glad someone get me out of this space.
No, you're co-hosting with me.
I
No, I should have gotten more though. I mean, I just have my one, and I, will not sell that. So,
Yeah, I always said that was like my forever NFT, and unfortunately, it did not end up being my forever NFT. So yeah, very, very sad. Maybe it wasn't that much. Maybe, okay. Yeah. No. Let me look. I'm looking in my history, my wallet history right now. Da, 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 da. Oh my gosh, no one on this space cares about how much I paid for my MFR. I'm just curious. I'm just curious. I know I can find it. I know I can find it. I'm like scrolling through.
um,
I'm like, damn, why do I buy and sell so many NFTs? Dumb.
I got into your wallet right now.
Oh my gosh.
Well, you
I'm
have
getting
a
close. Okay, sorry. I bought it for 3.25 ETH.
what you sell for?
I think I sold for like point 0.9.
At a loss? I would never sell an NFT with a loss.
Oh yeah. I
Damn.
I will sell at a loss all day every day if 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 I believe that whatever I'm buying with that money will make me back the money. So like 2.5 is pretty much the difference um, of like what I lost on this NFT or around there. I absolutely believe that like the doodle that I bought using that money will get me back 2.5 ETH. Absolutely. Maybe not right now because also doodles are in the dump. But I absolutely think I'll get back. Oh, 6.25. It hurts. It hurts.
Damn. Yeah.
Everybody, floor of doodles is low.
Fun
Go pick up
fact.
those low ones.
Yeah, I know. Doodle's like, well, fun fact, ETH was all-time high a year ago, 3 days ago. And
Hmm.
guys, if you have questions, thoughts, requests, come join. Let's talk. We have about like 10 more minutes, but we want to hear from you.
I see. I'm watching Bitcoin descend into the depths right now. Like the floor is in hell. The floor,
Yeah.
the floor is non-existent. It's $16,039. I just need it to go into 15s, and I'm gonna press the buy button. All right, who has requested? Unblock. Let's add a speaker. Oh, Anaroth, what's up, dude? Come on up.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
All right, yeah, we can. Welcome.
Great. Thank you guys for bringing me up. My name is Kibby. I'm the community manager for Unblocked. Just chiming in or listening in on your conversation. I want to say it's good that you kind of got in around 3 ETH, even though it is down bad, because I think the peak was like 6. So don't feel too bad. We've all had those moments. But I had a question towards regarding art gobblers. I kind of came in a little bit late to that conversation. I wanted to know if you guys think that, with all the controversy surrounding art gobblers, will that change how people search for alpha? Like, are people going to move away from influencers, or what do you think the new meta will be? Because I know we have like a lot of alpha groups, but it's kind of like influencers still reign supreme.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for coming on. I think influencers still be a thing. Like we live in an influencer culture basically on Web2 as well. So I don't see that going away that quickly, but uh, there's definitely a loss of some trust maybe in these people, but people who still need that alpha regardless. If there's no way that they know anything else, this is where they look. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, it's hard for me to answer just because I'm actually not in any like alpha groups, quote unquote. I'm in some community groups. Like, for example, there's a group of doodles that all have mullets. There's a Tiny Dinos group that I'm in. There's a couple other groups where it's just literally people hanging out. But I wouldn't say it's like alpha in the sense of like, oh, this project is coming out in, a couple days. Here's, the Discord invite. Here's the allow list invite. It's not really anything like that. I personally don't have like the time or the interest to like grind for like flips. I just don't care, to be honest with you. So I'm really investing in projects that I've seen over time that I believe in, that I think will have a return. That, of course, is on my mind, the like long-term return. I think for any asset you buy, like it should be on your mind. I don't think anyone buys something hoping it goes down. But yeah, I don't do the whole like alpha group thing. So it's hard for me to say whether or not they'll become more or less popular. I think there's, like Elena said, there's always going to be influencers. What I hope happens is people just stop like trusting influencers to make financial decisions, because I think that's what people are doing. They're like, oh, if such and such bought it, I need to buy it, and it's like, nope, they have a lot of ETH squared away that they can just burn or lose. You, on the other hand, probably don't. So be a little bit smarter, move a little bit slower. If you miss some, you miss some. That's anybody in the space. But yeah, I would say DYOR, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's just, I don't know, for me personally, I think it is kind of important that we kind of um I guess really take a look at who is influencing web 2, because at the end of the day we need the masses to onboard into our space. And they'll do that through influencers. I mean, we can throw out, DYOR all day, but people don't really even know how to research. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but in college my Cornell notes were not the best ones. So I can only imagine a new person coming into the space. So it's definitely interesting to hear you guys' perspectives, though, for sure. Thanks for bringing me up.
Yeah, thanks
Yeah,
for coming up. Yeah, the situation with that is like kind of weird because these alpha groups, like they're so. I mean, Loki, it's insider trading, right? So if it was regulated, it could be like illegal to do that, and that has been sort of in the core of crypto or even like the NFT culture in the last year and a half. So we'll see.
yeah, I think like the DYOR, this could come across as controversial, although it doesn't have to be. Sort of like people learn when they make mistakes. And so, like for me, for example, it was late one night and I thought I was sending Solana to my Solana address on my ledger. And I accidentally had copied and pasted my ETH wallet address because I was sending it to a friend because, they needed it for some reason. And so I copied and pasted like $600 worth. Well, I copied and pasted my wallet address, but I accidentally burned $600 worth of Solana because I sent it to an ETH address. And it is not recoverable. It is gone forever. I asked Coinbase because I didn't know at the time. I asked Coinbase, I asked Ledger, I asked everyone. I was like, hey, can I just like get my money back? Like it, like almost like a bank. Or like, hey, American Express, someone stole my card. Can you refund me? That is not how this works. And guess what? I have not made that mistake since. And I never wish that on anyone. But they're almost like there is this element of like once you make a mistake, you never make it again. And I know plenty of people who they have accidentally connected the wrong wallet where they've minted something fraudulently and then their account gets drained. There's like all sorts of scenarios. Again, I don't hope that ever happens to anyone. I hope everyone is safe. I hope they're using cold storage. I hope they're using, all of the security tips and features that the space preaches about. But I think there's going to be some people who either fat finger something or they copy and paste something, and they're going to have to learn. And DYOR, that's exactly what that is.
Yeah, but I'll like, put on my other hat and say like, yes, you live and you learn, but I think there are also many people have to make more mistakes and lose more because they don't have people to guide them. And I know a lot of people who know more than all these like some other like third tier like alpha people who don't know about blockchain or crypto at all, but they just buy and sell NFTs. And then they make more money just because they're able to, be that broy and get into that conversation while there are a lot of people who have been building and learning and being in the space and creating value and content. And since they don't have that kind of support system, they have to go through more difficulties. And I hope we change that because NFTs and crypto is supposed to bring equal opportunities to all, not make rich people richer.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think another way to look at it is just tuition. I mean, taking such a huge loss like that, it's like you just paid tuition to be able to learn the ins and outs of this space. And then, like you said, never make that mistake again. So growing
Yeah,
pains, growing pains, honestly.
absolutely. I think like what we're describing right now is sort of like personal responsibility. And then what Elena is describing right now is like the power structures that just inevitably start to form. Whether that's like white men in alpha groups only sharing info with each other, whether that's influencers who can be diverse, but are still only sharing it within a core group because they want to keep it secret and they want to protect their own bags. I do think the institutional, that's the wrong word for it, like the larger power structures in the space, also there is a conversation going on about it and it needs to continue. So thank you for your question. Anaroth, hi, it's so good to see you.
Yeah, what's good? I don't have a question. I just wanted to come say hi because we
Oh
talked
my
earlier.
gosh,
Yeah,
I love
like
hearing
this
your
is it's 2 weeks
voice.
in a row. I wanted to make a trend. I'm just like,
Oh,
oh, boy's up there. I got to go say hi.
oh my
And you
gosh.
look very good with your check. I love it. I love to see it. Unblocked. I see you there with your fancy check too. All for it. Y'all can take my money. I have no problems with it. I, like you, spend all of my time on Twitter. No shame.
Oh
No
yeah.
shame whatsoever.
I think Unblocked had theirs like being actually
Yes,
verified. I paid for mine, but
this is
I
a
think I
pre-Elon check for sure.
Oh, okay. Well, then you're just super fancy. Like I apologize for your official checkiness. Why I
No
have just
worries,
like
no
the
worries.
scrub check, but I am
Well,
happy
this
with
won't
my scrub
matter,
check.
guys. Well,
hilarious.
you're gonna have to pay
Hilarious.
regardless, though, if you want to keep it.
I
I know
spend
that's
more than enough of my time on Twitter a month that they can take $8 from it. Like, let me tell you, the things I spend $8 on that have no benefit to my life whatsoever, rather than
yeah.
Twitter. But Adam, I will agree with you, and I love how you kind of positioned it where like you don't need to take it the wrong way, but like you could. There is a certain level of personal responsibility when you come into this space. Like, it's wildly speculative. Like what? Like, there's no doubt in my mind that like I don't know what's gonna happen. And I was talking to my boss about this earlier today too. I'm just like, one of the things I have a lot of comfort in is it doesn't matter where I put my money in the last year. It would be worth less than what I started at. Like, it doesn't matter where. It could be NFTs, it could be crypto, it could be stocks, it could be futures, literally anything. Like, unless I just didn't have it sit in my bank account, that shit was worth less now than when I put it in. So it's not so much like I made a bad choice. Like, I'm learning a whole bunch of stuff. And I will
Well,
say, like, from someone who didn't have any pre Web3 experience a year ago to now, like, I would be hard pressed to put a dollar value on what I've learned over the last year because it's an insane amount that will change how I think about my future for the rest of my life.
yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
It would be less if you put it in the bank account too, you know, because of inflation.
I
So
appreciate you. Thank you. See, look, there's literally zero place I could have put my money and have it worth the same amount. Good looking out.
exactly. Yeah, no, this there's actually a chart that Scott Galloway is like he just published a book called Adrift American 100 Charts, and there's one that says like America is like the best place for rich people to be rich, like stay rich right now, rather than people to like or like get there. And then because of that, older people have been keeping their money for the longest time right now, and there's a very few transfer of wealth from the older people to the young generation. Thus, like we're fucked.
There was a housing article I saw, I think last week, where it talked about the first time home buyers percentage is like the lowest it's been in a long time, where there's like a smaller portion of just like older wealthy people who have accumulated enough to be able to buy property just like cash, and they're buying up all the available properties. And it's like that same thing, right? Where like if you already have money, you know doing that is going to make you more money. But that's also not new, right? Like I feel like that's kind of like always been the case. I think the difference about and why I'm excited about Web3 is like that idea of the 1,000 fan theory, right? Like you don't need all of the backing you did previously within this realm to necessarily build something successful. And I really don't think we've really seen like where that's going to take off. And I think the Instagram thing is part of that. But I think about the age group of like 14 to 19 who have grown up 100% on social media, who are now at an age where their cognitive ability is going to be able to market, merchandise, and brand their skills of social media better than a lot of us have. And we haven't really seen like how that turns into its own market. And it's going to be big. Like you're going to see 18, 20-year-olds doing things you see digital artists that have been working for like 20 years to get there because they've done it from when they were born. And I'm excited for what happens when that starts really happening.
Yeah, totally. I read yesterday that Parsons gonna have a course on Roblox designer, like clothing designer. I think you know it's crazy.
That's dope. Yes, there is an element of personal responsibility. I think Elena's point about power structures is legit too. I'm not someone who like necessarily is trying to like elbow my way into those spaces. I'm just out here sort of like doing my thing, making my calls as I see them. Anurag, you've been great about like bouncing ideas back and forth and even like giving me advice. So it really is to like when people talk about like community or alpha groups or whatever, it's like if you want to be an alpha group, like start one. Like go like farm insights on chain. Go, into discords and like, so I don't know. I'm always that person who's like, if you want something, why don't you go build it instead of expecting to like be invited or
Absolutely. And
yeah.
also just like don't make a decision in a vacuum, right? Like that's all an alpha group really is. Like, hey, is this a good idea? Nah, that's terrible. Okay, bet. Like anytime you're making a big decision, like you're not gonna blame the other person if you ask their advice, but it's good to get perspective. If I were gonna buy like 15 grand of a stock, I would probably ask someone first. Just because my JPEG's worth a whole bunch of money, like why wouldn't I ask someone if I'm gonna buy that and they think it's a good decision too? But like I think I learned that early on. Like don't be afraid to ask questions in this space because like people just give you really good information. You're like, well, shit, that's fantastic. But you got to ask. Like you got to be the one to initiate.
Yeah, and also you got to be the person to give info too. You know, like some people, like most people in the space are really helpful, really amazing. You can reach out to them, etc. But then you also come across people like I had this experience IRL. They have a because they have a bored ape or something. They think they're so better than everybody else and just like had this kind of cocky attitude, which is just like not what we need in space at all. And they might be winners of this first round perhaps, but this is just like chapter one of the Web3 journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And yeah, that's like the important part of community where I think everyone can come together. That's like what we've been trying to do here at these spaces is like share our perspectives, share how we're thinking about NFTs, share how we're thinking about navigating the market. None of it's financial advice because I don't know anyone's particular financial situation or their risk tolerance or, you know, the amount of exposure they want to have. But it's when you understand a couple different viewpoints, you could make better decisions for yourself. So I hope everyone who, you know, attended today follows Elena and Anna Roth because I know both of them have really, really, really great perspectives. So yeah, I don't know, Elena or Anna Roth or anyone up on stage, is there anything else that we want to talk about before we bounce today? Oh, just quickly, Bitcoin briefly went into the 15,000s for about like 5 minutes. We popped back out into the low 16,000s, but I think the decline is going to continue.
Yeah, maybe we can have one sentence prediction and then we can wrap it up if you have maybe price or something or anything we talked about.
My prediction between now and next week is that I will have acquired another blue chip NFT given the prices. That's my prediction.
Till next week? Till next week?
It depends, but we're gonna circle back. Anna Roth knows this. Anna Roth's been my sounding board for like maybe getting something else. We'll have to see.
I fully support your degenning.
Thank you. I'm not sure my finances will support it as much, but I appreciate your support.
And by support, I mean just like words of encouragement, because like I'm poor too. So like definitely not any support financially at all. Like I'm broke too.
Love it. Broke, but we have JPEGs.
Well, since we have two speakers up too, if you guys have a prediction very quickly, maybe we can hear that too, and we'll leave in a sec.
On a personal level, outside of Unblocked, I predict that I will be converting some things to USDC. That's what I'll say.
I gotta say, like, I'm just kind of riding it out. Like, I feel like I should be far more worried than I am, but like, I don't know. I'm kind of happy about everything that's transpired over the last year personally. So like, I'm good. I'm chilling. I'm not gonna look at the markets. I'm gonna keep focusing on my creative stuff. So hopefully next week, maybe I'll have a script written, because that's what I've been saying for like 2 weeks.
Love it.
Amazing. Okay, I don't have a prediction today. I just think Twitter in the short term will be chaotic and fun to watch and cover, but in the long term, I think we're gonna have a better product. Hopefully, that's my hope/prediction. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining our space today. To remind, nothing we say here is financial advice, but we'd love to come here usually every Monday. Today it was Wednesday, and talk with Adam all the news that we have that happened this week. And you can subscribe to my newsletter, NF Times, that's pinned on top of this space, that I'll be sharing NFT and my NFT London recap in the next couple of days, and some info about these news as well. And Rarible's newsletter is called Right Click Save, that you can subscribe from their Twitter account. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks everybody. We know it was a long one, so everybody who stuck around, you're the real ones. We will be back next week on Monday. And as always, we love your feedback, questions. So just tweet at us. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.